So welcome everybody to this class called 8 Verses to Turn Your Life Around. And it is based around Geshe Langri Tangpa's teaching of the 8 Verses of Thought Transformation. So we begin this class by doing a short meditation whereby we will set our motivation, we will set up a visualization, say a few prayers together, and then we'll actually begin. So please, just get comfortable in your seat. Make sure that your sort of back is straight and your shoulders are relaxed. You can place your hands wherever you like, and you can either keep your eyes open or you can close them. And I'd like you to just keep breathing normally and naturally. And as you breathe, you will be inhaling breath and exhaling breath. And as you do so, movements will take place in your body. And I'd like you to notice those movements and any feelings associated with them. And by focusing the mind upon the movement and feelings, the body will begin to relax and the mind will be centered and present. And with the mind being centered, present, and here now, and with the body relaxed, it's easy to imagine that the presence of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas could be made apparent to you as they abide in the space above your head. Whereas all sentient beings, including your mother and father, brothers and sisters, close friends, difficult people and strangers, surround you. And what we're doing in the company of all these people and in the company of the enlightened beings is we're leading all sentient beings to take refuge in the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas, in their teachings, and in them as a spiritual community. And if we ask ourselves, why are we doing this? The answer is to put an end to our own suffering and to develop all of our good qualities. Because it's only in this way can we become free from suffering, whereby we've actually benefited ourselves and we're able to benefit others. So with the presence of these enlightened beings before us, let's take refuge together. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. So in response to this prayer of ours, Lights and nectars pour out of the heart of the Buddha, and they wash over us and over all the beings surrounding us. And whatever hindrances, obstacles that we might have, which prevent us from having pure devotion to the Buddha and his teachings, are completely washed away. We find that the mind is open and pliant, the body is relaxed. We're able to effortlessly become genuine refugees from samsara. We gaze around us, we see that all beings are still experiencing different forms of suffering. So we have this wish, these 4 immeasurable wishes, that they be free from their suffering and have happiness. So we recite, may all sentient beings have happiness and its causes. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and its causes. May all sentient beings never be separated from the happiness that is without suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from the bias of attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. And again, in response to our prayer, lights and nectars pour out of the heart of the Buddha. They wash over us and over all the beings surrounding us. And we find that our mind, the mind of ourselves and of all other beings, have taken on these 4 aspects. For having devotion to the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas, our refuge field, we now say, reverently I prostrate with my body, speech and mind. I present clouds of every type of offering, actual and imagined. I declare all my negative actions accumulated since beginningless time, and rejoice in the meritable whole in ordinary beings. Please remain until the end of cyclic existence and turn the wheel of Dharma for living beings. I dedicate my own and others' merits to the great enlightenment. It is a skillful means to prevent our clinging to the merit to be just ours, to the sense of self that we have, to the body that we have, and to every other idea. We are now going to offer ourselves as the universe itself in a mandala to prevent this clinging. So we say, now this ground, anointed with perfume, strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, 4 continents, the sun and the moon, I imagine this as a Buddha field and offer it. May all living beings enjoy this pure land. Idam Gurata Mandala Kamariatayam. So release this mandala, and the Buddha accepts it with joy. And we look up, we gaze into his face, and we look into his eyes. And we see that we are accepted by the Buddha with a sense of compassionate ease, and we feel delighted and at ease. And then an emanation of the Buddha leaves his heart. It moves through space and comes to rest above the crown of your head. While facing in the same direction as you are, this emanation now begins to descend and enters the crown of your head, coming down through your body to rest at your heart. While resting at your heart, the radiance of the Buddha begins to expand, filling your body and mind with light. And the light goes out through the pores of your skin and now fills the 10 directions of space. So that wherever beings exist within space, they have been completely enveloped by this light and utterly transformed into the fully awakened state. And then the light begins to withdraw from the 10 directions of space, and it re-enters your heart. You can feel yourself breathing normally and naturally. And you know you're sitting on a seat. Feel embodied. And you know that this meditation has taken place on the level of imagination and has imprinted your mind with the potential for you to accomplish Buddhahood for the benefit of others. And you think, oh, thank goodness I've been able to do this. Thank goodness I've been able to do something useful and meaningful with my life. And you think, I will attain Buddhahood for the benefit of others. And then you breathe in through your nostrils and you exhale through your mouth. And in your own time, you allow your body to sort of wake itself up. You move your limbs, your eyes open, and you feel at ease, and you'll be in front of your screen. Okay, so this is the some of the material that I've been relying upon. So the books haven't changed at all. All of these books are about 8 verses of thought transformation or have commentaries on the teaching itself. And what we've covered so far, we began with the lineage of these teachings coming down from the Buddha down to Langri Tangpa, being shared with the other Kadampa masters, and then gradually coming to where we are today. And so, you know, the Dalai Lama recites these 8 verses every day. And it's a lovely thing to be able to memorize these and be able to call upon them whenever you need them. Before engaging in this practice of thought transformation, it's very useful to know what they're based upon, which these are the preliminary practices. And basically, so far, we've gone through 4 of the 8 verses. So today we're going to do a review of those 4, just very quickly. And then we'll have a look at verses 5 and 6. And these are concerned with what's called offering the victory and voluntary endurance. Now these trainings have a foundation in what we've said before, the preliminary practices and what's called wishing bodhicitta. So I want to show you these 11 steps for the practice of wishing bodhicitta, and we'll show you the type of practices associated with in our commentary today. So we begin with immeasurable equanimity to remove the bias that we have towards friends, enemies, and strangers, people we don't know very well, and so forth, and to balance our social reactivity towards others. We next begin by recognizing all beings as kin or family or mothers, and this depends upon some notion of beginningless mind and past and future rebirths. It's to bring about a sense of commonality with everybody and solidarity with them. We recollect the kindness, and this is to bring about gratitude. So this was covered in the very first verse. Do we wish to repay their kindness? So we reciprocate their affection. The next practice is to see the sameness of self and others, and that we and everybody else do not wish to experience suffering, and we all want to be happy. To have empathy for others. Now, what always gets in the way of this is what we call egocentricity, often referred to in the text as a self-cherishing or self-preoccupation. And we want to get rid of that, and we do this through generating a renunciation towards the causes of suffering for ourselves and recognizing others being just like us. We should have compassion towards them too. So to help us overcome the egocentricity, we've got to remind ourselves of the advantages of cherishing others. This will produce a sense of affectionate love towards others. On the basis of affectionate love, we can exchange the concern that was primarily focused upon ourselves and now directed towards others. This requires our courage and actually builds up courage. And as an expression of this courage, we start doing the giving and taking meditation. Some of you will know as Tong Len, where in our imagination we take on the sufferings of others and we give them all of our merits and everything lovely. And by doing so, we generate a sense of courageous compassion and selfless love. And most of this is done in our imagination. We want to use the basis of our imagination to actually help others as best we can. And to just produce a sense of wholehearted resolve, to have a sense of responsibility for others and the purpose. And the purpose here is to become enlightened so that we can actually help others as much as we'd like to. This is what's called bodhicitta, mind of enlightenment, or radical altruism. This is actually, we're working in the world now to actually benefit others. So it depends upon these 11 points. We have these verses of thought transformation. And we began with verses 1 and 2. So that they were related to what we call equalizing self with others. So I think that was the 5th step in that 11-point process. And so both verses are related to equalizing self with others. And you can see in verse 1, we should try to appreciate the kindness of others and have a sense of gratitude towards them. And what we need to stop doing is being preoccupied with our own concerns, like this faulty attitude. It's related to the engaging practice of bodhicitta in terms of the perfection of patience. Verse 2, what gets in the way of this is a sense of arrogance, so we need to combat that with humility. Arrogance is based on the sense of egocentricity, or the deluded forms of pride. And so we need to become less arrogant, become more humble. And this is related to this perfection of ethics, because if you are humble, it really will stop you harming others with your speech in particular. And this is, I sort of summarize this by saying, look, when my eyes behold limited beings, these are ordinary people like ourselves, beings who are not enlightened, I shall think, depending on them, I shall attain Buddhahood. And look with a sincere and loving manner towards them. So for us to attain Buddhahood, we need to rely upon the Guru, the teachers, and the enlightened beings, but we also need to depend upon unenlightened beings. So they have equal importance. If we just had the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas, the enlightened beings, we wouldn't be able to attain enlightenment. We need actual people who are unenlightened, who will challenge us so that we can actually develop, in particular, patience. And then we come to verses 3 and 4, and how now this is a step up in terms of practice, because now it's called exchanging self with others. And both these verses are related to that practice within the 11 stages of generating the mind of enlightenment. And there we need to, verse 3 said, look, if you wanted any type of happiness you wish for, will depend upon your own mind. And in particular, the two mental factors of vigilance and introspection. Mindfulness and vigilance, or mindfulness and introspection. And what we're trying to do is to stop the causes of suffering. This is called renunciation. To do that, we want to stop our egocentricity. We want to stop going along with the afflictions as they appear. And this is all related to the engaging bodhicitta practices of concentration. We've got to sort of concentrate the mind, keep it on what we know. So we come to verse 4, where we need to sort of want to stop the suffering of others. So here we've got this compassion. So this is in the third verse, we have renunciation, compassion towards ourselves. Fourth, we extend it out to the others. And this is to stop our sense of preoccupation with ourselves once again, and the discontent and other mental states that arise that produce suffering. This relates to the perfection of joyous effort because we can see this great benefit in doing this. And so we don't want to, it's no good trying to help others and then actually be resentful of it. They need to bring a sense of joy to that because we know by doing this we can become enlightened. So in summary, Arya Shantideva says, hence I should dispel the misery of others because it is suffering just like my own. And I should benefit others because they are sentient beings, just like myself. So we can see this, both the equality of self and the idea that we can exchange the view of just being focused on ourselves and now see others as being just like us. Which leads us to today's teachings. Is that right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. No, we've got to summarize it, I think. No. So here we are, verses 5 and 6, today's teachings. So here we see it's again related to exchanging self with others. So you can see verses 1 and 2 is equalizing self with others. Verses 3, 4, 5, and 6 are exchanging self with others. Verse 5, as you'll see, we have to sort of cultivate a sort of unbiased and courageous love towards others, and to stop any resentment we might have towards them and any sort of preoccupation. In particular, I was put down as here is like having the last word. So it's nice, isn't it? We can see it's related to the perfection of generosity. I give you the last word. You can have the last word. Yeah. In verse 6, how to endure the sufferings that others put upon us, and do this voluntarily and with a sense of joy because we know how we can benefit from it. So it's just, here we really should appreciate difficulties to be valuable teachings or valuable teachers. And it's really focused around the practice of compassion. And there being 3 types of compassion. We need to cultivate forbearance towards those who harm us with their body, speech, or mind, any form of suffering. And then our understanding and practice of the Dharma. We need to be patient with this. Especially these practices, but in general, all practices. Now, of course, you can see that there. So we need to stop being impatient with ourselves and then becoming despondent about how we're not able to be as good as we'd like to be. Again, relate to the perfection of patience in terms of engaging bodhicitta. Okay, so let's have a look then, and we'll have a look at this verse 5. So here it says, when others, out of jealousy, treat me wrongly with abuse and slander, I shall train to take the defeat upon myself and offer the victory to others. Now, one of the things that will happen is if you sort of get, what you might find is that when you are engaged in practices of the Buddha Dharma, or Miffy's got her hand up, yes?
Eddie, just stop the share while you're doing the explanation so we can see you.
So you're going to find that when you try to do these practices, it's quite possible that others will become jealous of you and will express it express their jealousy in strange behaviors. One of the reasons for this is because you're basically going to become better and better. You're going to become a nicer person, a better person. And those people that you usually hung with or be with are going to might be sort of be left behind a little. And they might not like this. You might also find the people that you're practicing with as a community, if you are engaged with the community, could also have a sense of competitiveness towards you. So this is not unusual. The other thing is that when we see, they've singled out jealousy, but you can also put in other disturbing emotions also. Yes, Miffy?
I find this one really pertinent because I remember one of the lamas saying that as you do more spiritual practice and create more merit, people do get jealous and it can attract a whole lot of obstacles. So to kind of be aware of that. And I think in Western psychology, there's a term for it of implied criticism, that if you're trying really hard and doing really well, it's people who are insecure in their own practice feel it as an affront to them. So they get jealous and competitive and feel your success as implied criticism of their failure. So this, and it's a really strong and common response. And this verse like directly brings that to the fore and gives us this really radical response to it.
Mm-hmm. Yes, well, I know from my experience, you've had that experience. So, I know you're speaking from experience
Yeah.
here. Yeah.
Yeah, and it made me so sad because in amongst all of the jealousy and the competitiveness, you can see that it comes from a deep insecurity about your own purpose, their own purpose, and seeing someone else's success instead of being able to rejoice, kind of
Yeah.
yeah, feeling it as an affront, a personal affront.
Yes,
As
and what happens instead of being rejoicing, they try and sort of sabotage you in different ways.
Yeah, and so then this verse of giving the victory to others, it kind of cuts right down to that deep insecurity that people have to go to help them, instead of them being all reactive and competitive, to give them whatever victory you can and bring out whatever good qualities they have that they're not even seeing in themselves.
Um, I'm going to kind of go back to the slide now and just talk about was there well I'm going to say when we talk about accepting defeat and offering the victory to others, we have to, it doesn't mean to say you got to do this every time. That's not what it means. You have to sort of differentiate. In other words, you've got to say, here I should accept defeat and offer the victory, but here I'm not going to. There are definitely times when you've got to say no, because if I do, the situation is worse. So it doesn't mean like, some of you might have heard that term being a doormat. It means I just got to go over it every time something happens to me, good or, every bad thing that happens to me, I've got to accept it and give the victory to others. If it's other people that have hurt me in some way or doing unskillful behaviors, like that's okay. So we've got to differentiate here. Yeah, so it says, I shall train, and this note too, I shall train to take the defeat upon myself. So this means we probably won't be able to do it every time immediately. Sometimes we can, sometimes we can't. And sometimes we should not. And sometimes we definitely should. So we've got these two different situations. So when we have these two situations, you've got to consider if you're going to give the victory and accept the defeat, will the benefit be temporary or really, is it ultimately beneficial? Will it be in the short term or the long term? And what about my own future? So it doesn't help if you're going to hurt yourself and let somebody else have the victory. So I'll just say a couple of things now from His Holiness. He says, if we are obsessed with our welfare and very selfishly motivated, we should accept defeat and offer the victory to others. But if the situation is such that the welfare of others is at stake, then we have to work very hard and to fight for the rights of others and not accept the loss at all. So when you consider taking the loss upon yourself, you must see whether giving the victory to others is going to benefit them ultimately or only temporarily. You also must consider the effect that taking the loss upon yourself will have on your ability or power to help others in the future. It's also possible that by doing something harmful to others now, you create a great deal of merit that will enable you to do things vastly beneficial for them in the long run. Another factor you have to consider. And Shanti Deva says in his Bodhisattva's Way of Life, you have to examine both superficially and deeply whether the effects or whether the benefits of doing a prohibited action outweigh the shortcomings. And when it's difficult to tell, you should check your motivation.
Eddie, I have a question.
Yep.
How would we ever know if it's helping them temporarily or permanently? At the time, how would we know
that? Well, what's the first thing I guess, Susan, is like, from your own side, you have to ask yourself, so what's driving me to act in such a way that it'll bring temporary harm, but long-term benefit? So I'll give you a simple example. This is a real simple one, right? So suppose you are to look after, well, somebody's child or your own child, and they are sort of playing around a lot. They're not paying a lot of attention to you, but they're with you and you're about to cross the road or a pedestrian crossing, right? And they're sort of scooting around, and they go to cross the road and a car comes, and you grab them, you're wrathful with them, and you tell them off. So you'll know that temporarily hurts them. But the long-term benefit is they don't just run across roads anymore. They know that cars come across, they can be hurt. So you'll know there, right? The long-term benefit of me being quite wrathful here is that they won't run across roads like this. Right? That I'm actually protecting their lives. Yes, it hurts to be yelled at by somebody who cares for you. It's uncomfortable. I've hurt their sense of self. It's not my intention to do that, but because I'm really trying to protect them. But they feel hurt by it. But they won't run across the road. So, and I'll tell you another story. So another one was, remember the story of once a Westerner going up to the Gompa at Kopan Monastery, and he could hear like this sound, and he walked around the corner and there was Lama Yeshe spanking a monk, beating his bottom with his hand. And then he looks up to the person who comes, the Westerner, and goes, I'll be with you in a minute. It's like there's no anger or anything on his face, but he's disciplining this monk so that the long-term benefit of the monk is good, but at present it hurts. So all you can do, Susan, is like have the intention. You really can't say, can you? certain.
Eddie,
Oh, this is this will benefit the person. Your intention is to benefit them, but whether it
it's
will or
having
not, they've got to play a part in that.
it's like having a fierce sense of benefit that it's not like a reaction. It's seeking to really fiercely benefit somebody.
Yeah.
But the
So it
other
can't be
thing,
reactive and driven by anger or any
yeah.
disturbing emotion.
But on the other hand, in terms of giving the victory, a really direct go-to is to think, am I giving the victory because I'm just seeking to avoid conflict? Or am I giving the victory as an act of generosity? Because many times I've just found with myself, I will give the ground because I just don't like conflict. And so it's actually being having a real lack of courage to deal with a situation.
Now, the other thing they're talking about here is you might have, let's say, so I remember another story where, oh, well, yeah, so you guys have probably all heard the story of the Buddha in one of his lives when he wasn't the Buddha, he was a bodhisattva and he was on a boat and he knew that somebody else had this plan to kill everybody on the boat and rob them. So he tried to convince him as many ways as he possibly could not to kill the other 500 merchants on the ship. So if you look at this, oh look, I'm going to give the victory to this person who's going to do the murder. So this is the person who goes, no, I can't do that. So this bodhisattva, after trying many different ways to try to prevent the person committing this crime, decides, well, it's better that I experience the suffering of killing one person than this man has the experience of killing 500. So I'm going to take his life. So this benefits the person who's about to kill the 500, and it also benefits all the other people who are the other merchants. But for the bodhisattva, you've got to wear that. That's a loss on your part. But when you look at the action and what's driving, you're going to say, what's the motivation here? So it's the motivation of compassion, isn't it? I'm going to take somebody's life, but it's an action of compassion. So the murderer won't have to experience like heavy karma of 500 lives. And not only that, but the 500 living people won't have to die. So I'll take the person's life. But in general, for us, people like us, Susan, there's no certainty. We can't be certain. There's no certainty here. Samsara is, one of the characteristics of samsara is uncertainty.
Thank
So
you.
I mean, that's all I can sort of offer you, Susan.
Thank you very much.
So, and as Holiness says in a book called Teachings from Tibet, where there's a commentary on these 8 verses, and this book is being released by the FPMT. And not FPMT, it's the, what's it called?
Lama Yeshe Wisdom Archive.
Lama Yeshe Wisdom Archives. So this is a free book you can have. It's a wonderful book of different teachings. And in it is a commentary on 8 verses of thought transformation by the Dalai Lama. And in that he says, look, if you have time, read as many texts as you can to help you make your decisions. And many times on the side is like our side as ordinary sentient beings, is the first thing here is to try and do no harm. Right? But here, because it's bodhisattva practice, is like try and do good. Right? That's the first thing. We're coming, how can I benefit? How can I benefit? Where the previous stuff is, how can I not hurt myself and others in the process of my actions? So let's do a short meditation, folks. So It's up to you. You don't need to close your eyes. It's just like a reflection, we'd say. We're just thinking about stuff. So think, or wonder, I wonder what it would feel like to have no need to be right. I wonder what it would feel like to have no need to be right. What would it be like to perceive the pain and injustice that others seem to inflict upon us as purification of harmful concepts that we acted upon and inflicted upon others? What would your body feel? What emotions would you feel? What would your heart and mind feel? And how would you interact with these people? These people who are sort of imposing a victory upon us, a defeat that we're accepting. So if you feel any sort of liberating energy about this contemplation, allow yourself to breathe that in and then exhale and just relax. And then breathing in deeply, exhaling through the mouth, and opening your eyes.
Eddie, there is a question here from Anna.
Yeah, what's the question, Nikki?
Does your imagination and knowledge of the situation's ethical outcome very much impact the outcome of your decision if you should accept the defeat or not? So, like what you imagine. So, would it impact the outcome if you employ certain habits of imagination?
Well, it would impact the outcome in terms of what you did or did not do. Yep, for sure.
I found your the questions in the meditation fantastic because it's really apparent this is how to not hold a grudge.
Okay. Yeah. Well, so here's this lovely little quote that I like. It says, "This fault I see is not the fault of the person, it's the fault of delusion." Realizing this, may I never view others' faults. See all beings as supreme. So we're going to do another meditation, just another little simple contemplation. So here, again, I want you to imagine that you're in front of somebody who's upset. And you remember that although sentient beings have a mind that is filled with delusions, sentient beings themselves are not faulty. All the faults we see in people are the faults of delusions. not of the people themselves. People are not their delusions, are they? And delusions are not people. And the fully awakened beings, the Buddhas, see that delusions have many faults, as you do too. But they, unlike us, they, the Buddhas, never see people as faulty. So can you distinguish between people and their delusions? People have delusions, but they are not delusions. The delusions are at fault, not the people. And again, just breathe in gently through your nostrils. Exhale. And just relax. So in summary, we're sort of offering the victory. This verse about offering the victory and accepting defeat. And we're training in the patience of willingly accepting hardship. This means being courageous. And we're doing it to really challenge our own sense of selfishness, our own sense of like being right and having the last word. It's related to an exchange of attitude. We're changing our attitude. Before, we always had to win. Before, we had to beat everybody else. Now we're saying, what needs to be lost here, what needs to lose is the self-cherishing attitude. The attitude that always puts me up front. And this is related to the perfection of generosity. So we'll now come to the, are there any, so we've just finished the first verse 5 and we'll move on now to verse 6. But before I do, are there any final questions or anything anybody would like to ask? Perhaps at the end of, yep, Barbara?
For me, Eddie, of all of them, this one really squashes the ego.
It sure does. That's right.
It just hammers it.
Yeah, that's right, Bob. That's right. Yeah, and what's so also very good about this one is that it's so obvious to you yourself, as the practitioner, right? You're actually sort of allowing something to take place. You're allowing the victory to be held by the others. It's a deliberate choice on your part. So I remember when I'd come across this verse, I used to relate it to when I was much younger. I used to play pool a lot. The 8-ball, you probably call it in the States, and I was pretty good at it. In fact, I was so good that I was rarely beaten. And what happened was that no one would play me, so I couldn't make any money. So I realized, and my mentor had actually told me, you have to actually lose games if you want to keep playing. You have to give the victory to others if you wish to keep playing. And it was such a foreign concept to me. I thought I have to win every time. I'm not going to lose. And he said, well, this is what happens when you take that attitude. You won't be able to play at all. And so then I learned to actually, throw games. That's what they call it, throw a game, where you deliberately lose. And then coming across this, great. So we've got 2 hands up. We've got a hand up for Erin, and we've also got a hand up for Yvette.
And Eddie, just stop the share.
Yep, thank you. Yep. Okay, let's go first. Who do we have first? I saw Erin's hand up first. Yes. But you got, yep, there you go.
Yeah, one of the things that I think about when I go through this, these verses is we've all had a sensation of what it feels like to be jealous, and that's a suffering mind in and of itself. So kind of thinking about that, as well as, so it's sort of 2 parts to it for me, like the piece that I know what it's like to be jealous, and I don't want to cause somebody else to whatever it is that I'm doing, and that the offering the victory could just be whatever, letting somebody go in front in line, or like some small thing.
Yeah.
Could be something a little more significant. So it's sort of a two-part thing. Like we know what it's like to feel jealous, and then how can I reduce that jealousy on that person by offering the victory or offering whatever, something that they perceive that they would like.
Yeah, and as you're saying, Aaron, just like putting somebody else in the front line, somebody else to go first, we give them that sort of victory. I mean, I think myself, I feel quite good about doing something like that. You know, I'm sure you guys do too. Yeah. So Yvette, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was going to say, was that sometimes when you do that, you get a sort of a feeling of joy.
Yeah, that's
a feeling
right.
of joy and a lightness. Like
Yeah.
it sort of lifts the sort of a burden, and it's a lightness, like, wow, I can do this, you know, this is great, it feels good. So
And as you just pointed out there too, Aaron, it's like, there's a massive difference, isn't there, between that feeling, that state of mind, than the state of jealousy, the jealous mind. There's a major difference there in feeling, tone, and experience. And Miffy, yes?
I was also thinking that quote that you put up of, to not think that the person is their delusions. That's so bound up with it, isn't it? Because and I find it so hard to remember that it's not the person, it's their delusions that's creating the problem. And once you recognize that, then it's much easier to offer the person the victory, because you're not offering the delusions the victory.
And that's right, good point. That's right, we're offering the person the victory, not the delusion. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Okay, very good. Let's move on then. We'll have a look at the next verse. So we come now to the 6th verse. So here it says, when someone whom I have helped, or in whom I have placed great hopes, mistreats me in extremely hurtful ways, I will train myself to regard him as my precious teacher. Now, I'm sure this has happened to all of you, or it's certainly happened to me, that people you've placed great hopes in and expectations in let you down in some way, which is hurtful. And here this verse is asking us to look at this as our teacher teaching us something.
It's called, in modern days, it's called a teaching moment.
So this is taken from, again, the book Teachings from Tibet by His Holiness. He says, usually we expect people whom we have helped a great deal to be very grateful. And if they react to us with ingratitude, we are likely to get angry about that. In such situations, we should not get upset, but practice patience instead. Moreover, we should see such people as teachers testing our patience, and therefore treat them with respect. His Holiness says this verse contains all the Bodhisattva teachings on patience. So how about that? All the Bodhisattva teachings on patience, verse 6. And so there's a couple of, there's a term here called as my precious teacher. So, and what this means, he says, our spiritual teachers are embodiments of great kindness, for they bestow on us the vows, and they provide us with the methods for our practice, and they reveal to us the path of liberation. Of course, if we fail to contemplate this, and then fail to guard what we've contemplated, we won't do it. Right? We won't tread the path, as he says. His Holiness goes on to say that we can use difficult people as teachers of Dharma, particularly patience, and we can use difficulties themselves to become stronger. When such thoughts arise spontaneously, we will know our mind is trained. then, even if we have no other practice, whatever acts we engage in turn to aspects of the path to enlightenment. Okay, so we have a couple of questions here. Lou, you've got your hand raised. Are you pulling out?
Yes. Yes. I was going to say this verse also relates greatly to practice of generosity.
Yeah.
Because the whole concept behind generosity is giving without expecting return or someone to be grateful, or without expecting any of that.
Yep, that's right. It's highly, that's right. Very, it's in a way, both these verses out there, you can see aspects of patience and generosity in both of them. Now, now, what does this verse say again?
Eddie, there's something in the chat for the question from Anna is, what's the karmic cause of wanting a situation to be perfect, not necessarily for your own good? Is it the certainty of the outcome being predictable and familiar? Is it the fear of change, that you wish everything to be certain and known rather than, say, spontaneous? So the karmic cause of wanting a situation to be perfect.
Oh, well, I'd say that we have this habit of seeking certainty in places where there isn't. So we're in our mind is samsara, and as you know, your mind is uncertain about a lot of different things, and that's part of the nature of samsara. And it is that way because we don't know how things are. We've misapprehended things straight from the get-go, and yet we want certainty, but we're wrong from the get-go. So we're looking for certainty in places where there isn't any certainty. And by doing that again and again and again, I'd say that's just one of the causes for the habit of it.
So does that mean then that we can strive for, say, certainty and perfection, but we've got to be much more cluey as to where we're seeking that, and certainly not in...
It's not in samsara, that's sort of samsara. I mean, I used to say there's only one certainty about samsara, that's you die and it repeats itself.
Otherwise known as death and taxes.
Yeah, there's more certainty in spontaneity and acceptance. Yeah. Well, yeah, you can be certain in samsara that be certain of change, that's for sure, that things will change. So this first, these other people are going to, we've helped somebody and then they've mistreated us, they've harmed us. Now, what usually happens when somebody harmed us, just like we did that meditation, we look at the person as the harm doer, don't we? We forget, well, the harm doer is being driven along by their own delusions. So the delusions are to blame. Yet I put my focus on the person. But actually, this person and the delusions that are driving them are just the conditions for our suffering. The deepest causes for our suffering are the previous karmas we've engaged in, the previous activities of our body, speech, and mind. There's left a propensity on our own mind stream to experience suffering. But if you remember the story of the Buddha, so they're fully enlightened, then they meet up with people who are difficult, right? Who are driven along by their own delusions. So imagine being so deluded that you'd wish to kill a Buddha or hurt them or harm them. Like the other verse of jealousy, right? So you probably remember the stories of the Buddha having a number of his different students who were jealous of him and tried to harm him in different ways. But from the Buddha's side, his mind was never harmed. He never generate disturbing emotion in relationship to the harm that others tried to do to him. Right? So the Buddha wasn't himself harmed. But so if we take that understanding, then we go, well, if they're trying to harm him, but he wasn't harmed, and they're trying to harm me, and I am harmed, what's the real cause for the harm? You got to come back to yourself, don't you? Because on both sides, there's harm doers trying to do harm, right? That's the same. But one person's not harmed, and the other person, me, is. So the primary cause must be back on my mental stream.
This is like even the Buddha experienced office politics, but had this completely radical, different approach to office politics.
Yeah, well, he couldn't be harmed by them. He didn't have the cause for it to be harmed. But we have the cause. So we call this the karmic seed. All it needs is the conditions to be present and the seed will ripen. Buddha doesn't have the seed, so the conditions can't ripen. We have the seed and they ripen. Right, so then we experience harm. So it's like, you probably heard this thing, karma is a wheel of sharp weapons that returns. So in response to the harm we create, the harm returns. And this is where we say, my behaviors, my previous behaviors are to blame for me suffering now. So you notice here, I haven't put like, I am to blame for this. Or I am responsible. Because it's very easy then to take a wrong approach and be too, because it's not if the I is responsible for this, it's the mere I. It's not, a self-sufficient real I. But even that, there's the behaviors that the I created. Karma. So now they've met up with the conditions in this life. So of course somebody tries to harm us. We've harmed others in the past. Now we experience harm. So when the others try to harm us, we go, oh, there's the teacher teaching me about karmic cause and effect. I would never experience this harm if I hadn't created harm. Just like the Buddha didn't experience harm when others tried to harm him. But me, I have not purified my mind. So of course the cause for pain and anguish remains. Damn, this fellow's teaching me. I need to purify my mind and get on board with this Dharma stuff. Not only have I not purified the mind, having this teaching, I've got to stop myself harming others right now and in the future. And Susan, you have a question?
Yes. How does collective karma fit into this? Like, let's say a national karma that a nation has from engaging in some kind of a war or starting a conflict. And so there's a collective karma. How does that play? How does that interact with our individual karma?
Okay, so we have like a collection is made up of individuals. Right? So then you have a group of people that are all hurt together. Right? But that group of people are all individuals that are hurt. So if we all go off to war, right, and then we all kill somebody, for instance. Right? So collectively, we've all accumulated the karma to experience some unfortunate result in our future. But this unfortunate result is experienced individually by each person in the group. So
But Eddie,
individually,
what if it's a cause like slavery in the United States? And then that was long before I was born. And
Sure.
yet that karma, it is still going to play out.
Yeah, that's
That
right,
collective
for sure.
karma.
That's right. If people have not purified the causes, that's right, it'll play out. Yep, that's right. So this is this thing. As I often say in our classes, I say to myself, take the view that you've done everything wrong and crazy because you're still in cyclic existence. Don't excuse any behavior. Think you've done the worst of the worst. So that means it's like playing it safe, right? Yeah, okay, so I've done all these terrible things. That means in the future I'm going to experience terrible harm. And I don't want that to happen to me. So I need to start purifying whatever I've done in the past, or at the very same time not create any more in the future. And this, when the others harm us, we see them as teachers, showing us, guess what, Eddie? That was one you didn't purify. Now you have to experience it. And I'm only doing this for your good, son. I want you to realize the state you're in. You're still in samsara. You're still going to keep experiencing this unless you do something about it. The other thing you could say is that when the other sort of harms you, like you feel harmed, you can go, oh, thank goodness this person has helped me release that karma, the effect of that karma, because I haven't responded to it in another harmful way. They've pointed out that I have the cause for it, and in doing so, the cause has been released so that I feel hurt, I am harmed, but I'm not going to respond to this harm by creating another harm. Right, so then you can look at this person, oh, thank you for doing that.
So Eddie, is the whole feel of this that when bad things happen to us, that it throws us back on ourselves, that it shows us exactly where we're up to karmically or what we've missed. So instead of us being reactive outwardly, we look within. Is that?
Yeah, we need to do that, and then we can look back outwardly at the person who is one of the conditions for this. You know, and go, well, thank you. I didn't realize that. You know, so some of you, like I know here in Brisbane, you know, some of us attend teachings by the Geshes, right? So often Westerners, I found, are a little bit shy and they're a little bit afraid when they sit in the classes and the teacher asks them questions. Right? So nobody wants their either ignorance or shyness to be pointed out. Right? But actually the teacher's trying to help us. Right? And this is an attitude that we can take when the other person, you know, harms us. We go, wow, okay, so they pointed out I had a karma that I'd not dealt with before, and like it erupted, right? And of course, I'm shaking in my boots, but that's because I'm shaking my boots because I caused others to shake in their boots. Right? So now, of course, I'm shaking, but I haven't got nasty back to them, and because I haven't, that karma's been released. Right? We go, well, thank you. This is this idea of looking at as harms as being teachers.
And Eddie, also that an experience is the end of an experience, not
That's right.
the beginning, because when it's happening to us, we think, oh no, this is the beginning of something terrible, but actually it's the end of something terrible.
Yeah, but in many times we take an end and we begin something terrible again because we respond badly. You know, we go, oh, you harmed me, well, I'm going to harm you back. I'm not copping that. And we kick the whole thing off again. Whereas this is saying sort of, you know, to be courageously patient, right? Accept the harm because I created the harm. And now the harm is being released. And yes, it feels uncomfortable energetically. Yeah. And then look at this person and go, well, I've probably got a whole lot more stuff just like that.
So it stops us retaliating,
Yeah.
but not from the top down, from kind of deep within it stops us retaliating.
Yes,
Not
if you
just
can
kind of
remember this material,
forcing it.
yeah, that's right. So it's a real big teaching on, we can use our understanding of karma here. It's like I said, when we're hurt, it's because we have the cause to be hurt, and anything else is a condition for it. So this is like this sort of, I wanted to sort of support what we've been talking about. So he says, moreover, suffering has many good qualities. Through experiencing it, we can dispel pride. We can develop compassion for others who are just like ourselves and also trapped. We can abandon non-virtue by not responding harshly, and we can delight in our virtue. So let's we'll do another meditation now, or sort of contemplation. So I want you to again imagine that you're in front of somebody and they're perhaps yelling at you, screaming at you, shouting at you. Somehow you're being hurt by them. You feel hurt by them. And this is actually taking place. And you say, well, look, this person is harming me now. But in the past, they were my friend. And they were someone who helped me. Now, as they helped you before, might they not be helping you now? Showing you that things will never be quite right in samsara. This person must be a teacher of mine, helping me once again, encouraging me to cultivate fortitude. Since it is impossible to make progress on the spiritual path without fortitude, they have great benefit to me. This time, I will take the lesson to heart. This time, I will work to end the dissatisfaction of myself and help others do the same. Okay, have a little pause. And now we're going to do one more little reflection. So again, just relax yourself. You don't need to close your eyes. You can either close them if you like, but it's just reflection. We're just thinking. Now I want you to think that again, if somebody's in front of you, hurting you in some way, or hurting somebody that you really like, but you're upset by it. I think the only reason people harm you is because you've created the cause for them to do so. And you've done this through past unskillful actions. When people harm you, they're teaching you about the law of karma. By deceiving you and repaying your help with harm, they are reminding you that in the past you deceived and harmed others. We are betrayed only because we betrayed them or others in previous lives. Now, they are encouraging us to purify our negative karma and to refrain from harmful actions in the future. These people are no different from my gurus, from my teachers who conferred upon us the oral transmissions and the meditative practices. How kind this person is. They must be a spiritual guide, emanated by the Buddha himself. And just breathing deeply in, exhaling through the mouth, and relaxing. This is a lovely quote by Lama Yeshe. He says, whether someone is a foe or friend, these objects that give rise to afflictions, he who sees them as spiritual teachers will be joyful wherever they reside. And this is a really important point, because it means that anyone can be a teacher of ours. So whether someone is an actual spiritual teacher or an obstacle to our practice and our progress depends entirely upon our own mind. In many ways, those who harm us are the kindest of all, because they shatter our complacent views, which are sort of more concerned that, being in samsara is like in a pleasure garden. It's okay, it's all right. But these blokes come along and say, well, if you think that, I'm going to wake you up. And it's through thinking that the others who harm us are actually trying to guide us, to get us on track. Then we can sort of transform our attitude, and instead of being discouraged by them, we can cherish them. He says, since we spend so much time with our families, and that's where you often get hurt most of all, right? By people in your family, or the people who are really close to you. And in fact, it was quite rare to be hurt by a stranger. But people who are close to us, they take liberties with us. And we do the same with them, don't we? We lose our mindfulness. Right? We lose what we remember. So since we spend a lot of time with people close to us who have a lot of either attachment to us or aversion, then it's probably a good idea to treat them as actual spiritual teachers, and not to look at them as problematic, problem people. Okay, so we're going to do one final reflection, and then we'll have a look at the summary and then wrap up. So again, get comfortable. Close your eyes if you like, or keep them open. Now, just sort of a sense of wondering here. So what would it be like to think of your deepest hurt as your highest teacher? What would it be teaching you? What could your deepest hurt be teaching you? Then what would it be like to realize that while there is a place within us that can be hurt, we are not free of personal motives? What would it be like to feel grateful to those who invite us to rediscover our original unconditional freedom and love. I wonder how the body would feel. What emotions we might experience. I mean, how would the heart and mind feel? And how would we interact with such a person who revealed to us our deepest hurts? If there are any energies at all that you feel liberating, allow yourself to breathe these in and then relax with them. And then breathing in through your nostrils, exhale through your mouth. Allow your eyes to flutter open if they're closed. And we'll just come back to the screen. Okay, Miffy has her hand raised. Yes, Miffy?
Yeah, I have a question. There's a really fine balance between being able, that incredible relief of being able to release kind of resentment towards others and not see them as an enemy, but also it's got to be balanced with some people are dangerous to be with. So kind of how do I remember that they might be temporarily dangerous for me to be with, but still keep that kind of real inner almost affection or appreciation of them?
The only answer that comes through, because I've had this experience myself, is through contemplation. Through when you're not there, when you're at home, you start thinking about your relationship with them and how it could be quite dangerous to be in their company. But while you're not in their company, you're not endangered. And you can think about them with affection, thinking, yes, when I did, they did this and that to me, and I experienced these feelings and emotions, experiences, and some of them could have been quite hurtful. Right? But so then look at that. What's that revealing about me? That's useful.
Yeah, but then I forget.
Don't forget. We all forget.
That's
That's
right.
what Geshe
That's
always
why
says.
we have to have
Our problem is we forget.
vigilance in the previous verses, so that then keep it in mind that both the danger and also the benefit.
Yeah, that's right. This is right. This is what Rinpoche has always said. That makes laugh. He says, a problem is not that we don't know. Our problem is that we forget. Right? Crack it and go, yeah, that's right. Of course, that's right. I know it's always trouble when I'm with this fella. Well, I forget. And it's the same with us. So when we have our own disturbing emotions arise, we look at it. Yeah, the function of any disturbing emotion is to cause you harm. Right? That's what we got to remember. But like I said, we forget. We forget, so that we get harmed again and again and again. And this is the purpose of mindfulness and then the vigilance too. Yeah. So in summary, it's just being able to endure this and to do it voluntarily. So we're really looking here at the cultivation of forbearance. Another term for this is what they call patience. And it means stop being impatient. But slow down as much as you can, and breathing really helps here. Come back to your breath, center yourself, appreciate what's happening. Don't attack the person, deal with what's going on here. And look at the person who helped to generate with affection. Go, teaching me something I'd forgotten or didn't know about. Yeah, actually, I remember this a skillful method. This person or whatever he said. So when the first thing his first response was whenever anybody harmed him in any way, was to say thank you. That was the first word out of his mouth, and it really disarmed the other person, but it also gave them time to think and appreciate. You know, like you've said that, you go, oh, of course, I'm thanking this person for revealing something about my own nature that I could use, that I could tackle. So in a way, this person's a teacher to me. Thank you.
That's
Thank you
like
for helping me.
that time with the Lama Yeshe getting pulled up by the traffic cop in somewhere in America, and you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
with a motorcycle cop, so with the leather jacket and the mirrored glasses, and then you know, um, Lama Yeshe just saying thank you, thank you, thank you so much, thank you, you're so kind,
Yeah, that's
and the
right. Yeah, I think he
officer.
did say something too, like, yes, I was speeding. Thank you. Oh my God. Thank you for holding me up. So it's this idea of like taking hardships onto the path as teachers, but also, you know, what we call difficult people as teaching us something about ourselves. Lou has his hand raised. Yes, Lou.
There was someone in the past, I don't know who it was, who was robbed while he was going from one place to another. And he was so thankful to the robbers who robbed him for telling him, making him realize how attached he was to his possessions. They told him which way to go to avoid the police, and you know, they gave him all this advice.
So, so it's really this exchange of an attitude. We're changing this attitude of looking at in other words, as, you know, people being problem makers as being actually teachers, and revealing and also that the experiences we have, even though they could be quite difficult and painful and so forth, is being very useful to us. And of course, this is all related to the perfection of patience. But we do need to sort of slow ourselves down so that we can respond with our knowledge of Dharma. You will find that oftentimes when you are, you know, like biting back or wanting the victory to be yours, it's a very quick response. It's done often without any thinking. It's just reacting. And so you need to sort of slow that sort of thing down. And as Holiness says, you know, it's worth remembering that the time of greatest gain in terms of wisdom and inner strength is often that of greatest difficulty. You know, many philosophers and religious people have said the same thing throughout the ages. And many of you, if you've ever gone through a really difficult period and got through it okay, you'll realize that's where I grew the most. I had so many resources I had to call upon. Now, it's just, again, saying that, you know, the difficulties can be great teachers for us. And in terms, again, here's our summary. So in basically, you're offering victory and accepting defeat and voluntarily enduring the different types of suffering, looking at them as being opportunities for growth. Both verses relate to exchanging self with others, just like verses 4 and 3. So do appreciate difficulties as valuable teachings or teachers. These three types of forbearance all have to do with compassion. And to have this compassion, it's got to stop being impatient with the harms that we experience, and not to be despondent about it either, not to become depressed and to give up. And yeah, in terms of the real practice, offering victory, accepting defeat, letting somebody else go in front of you in a line, just do the small things. Think about the small and gradually move up to the bigger things. Work at your own level. And having the last word, that's a good thing to not to let go of. Right? Otherwise, it just goes on and on and on.
It's a really nice one. Thinking of it as an act of generosity. That's a great way to do it. It's a real incentive then.
Yeah. Well, folks, we've come to the end of our class. Is there any final things anybody would like to say or offer or ask about? Okay, so in terms of our takeaways, today we looked at verses 5 and 6, but really deepening love and being patient. And you had the summary of the main points that are up there, how they're related to the wishing bodhicitta, the engaging bodhicitta, what to do and what not to do. So, during the week, if you can find any commentary on these 8 verses, please have a look at them, read them, studying them. And next week, we're coming up to the final 2 verses, verses 7, really based around the Tonglen practice, and verse 8, based around ultimate bodhicitta, and uses the analogy of seeing all things to be like illusions. So as we've all been here, all interested in this material, thinking about it, talking about it, reflecting upon it, this is all meritorious. So let's aim these activities towards becoming enlightened for the benefit of others. And if this attitude has not really arisen yet, may it arise and may it continue to flourish. So due to the merits of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. May the Supreme Jewel, bodhicitta, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase evermore. And as long as space endures, and as long as sentient beings abide, may I too remain to dispel the sorrows of the world. It's a lovely prayer, isn't it? Okay, well, thank you again for attending the classes. Please, all of you, stay alive and let's stay in touch, and we'll keep on engaging in these teachings next week. So thanks again, everybody.
Thank you, Eddie.
Thank you, Eddie.
Thank you, Eddie.